Well, how's it going, everybody? Today we are taking a look at the New City Catechism question number 6. And if you're wondering why we're doing the New City Catechism, why I think it's a good fit for what we're doing in youth ministry, you can take a look back at some of the other videos that I've made. But today we are on question number 6, which is, how can we glorify God? So if you are ready to dive into that, we are going to get into it right now. And so what I did for this video is earlier today I went outside, it was a beautiful morning, and I drew this out because the ideas that are being communicated in this question and answer really kind of do this cool little dance with each other as we look at how we glorify God and how God is glorified in our life of obedience. And so I'm going to show that to you guys as we kind of talk out this question and answer together. So the question is, how can we glorify God? The answer is by loving Him and by obeying His commands and laws. Now, I know some of that language is maybe a little frightening at first, the idea of obedience and commands and laws, and we'll get into it. It's going to be far less frightening as we talk about it, so hang in there. So the first thing that we encounter is the idea of glorifying God, and this is kind of a churchy word. At least I kind of feel like it is. I didn't grow up in the church. So this idea of what does it mean to glorify God or glory? I did another video on this just to kind of break down some of the thoughts of this word glory and what it might look like for us to reflect God's glory. We do this often enough in our culture. We look at a musician or an artist or a sports team or your favorite YouTuber or something like that, and you follow that person, you represent that person, you buy their merchandise, you've got their t-shirt, you know that person, or at least you feel like you know that person. Or maybe it's your sports team. When you point to that team, you're saying that team is better than any other team for whatever reason, or this artist is better than any other artist, and we lift that person up above all others. That's what we mean by glorification. We're lifting them up. And when we're talking about God, we're just saying, well, God is the genuine God, the only one true God, the best God, or all other gods that come in are posers and fakes, and they are just trying to be like this God that we're talking about, who is the one true, genuine, real God. It's a bad comparison because we're not like going to get the t-shirt and the hat. I mean, I'm sure some people do, and that's okay. But we represent God, we glorify God and lift God up, and we do that with our lives. It begins with love, and we glorify God by loving God. And we can all kind of get on board with that. If you're a Christian, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I love God, God loves me. We kind of get that. Where we get a little hung up is with the words obey, with the words commands, and the word law. I mean, particularly law and kind of the ideas of legalism that are going to come up in our minds. And really, that's not what we're talking about here. And I think what's helpful is if we actually look at the Bible verse that's connected with this catechism question. It's always helpful, but let's take a look at Deuteronomy chapter 11, 1 through 13 is the section that the New City Catechism is going to recommend. The memory verse is just verse 1, and verse 1 begins with a very important word. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 1 begins with therefore. And you can go and you can read that whole section. I'm not going to break the whole thing down for you because I'm going to get stuck right there. You shall therefore love the Lord your God and keep His charge, His statutes, His rules, and His commandments always. You shall therefore love God and obey His commands and laws. Well, why does it begin with therefore? The whole context of this passage is set after God has redeemed His people, after He has rescued them from Egypt, after He has saved them and set them free. God has already done those things, and therefore His people love Him, obey His laws and His commandments. it's not legalism which has it the other way around. I live in obedience, and I obey God's laws, and I obey God's commands, and therefore he loves me and redeems me and rescues me and saves me. That's not how it works. It's not that you obey his commandments and laws and then you are redeemed. It is that you are redeemed and now you live in obedience. It's this, therefore, because of God's love, we return his love. We love because he first loved us. And so this, therefore, in Deuteronomy chapter 11 is very key. And when we do all of this really fun design, then we are living in a life that glorifies God. Now, what does that life look like? What does glorifying God look like? Well, whatever you're doing, do that in obedience. So whether you're fishing, whether you are at work, whether you're at school, whether you're trying to get your math homework done or whatever it is, you are doing that out of obedience and love. And when you do it out of obedience and love, you are glorifying God. You are reflecting God's glory back to himself and reflecting his glory to the world around you. You're displaying that glory. The glory that God has sort of is reflected in your face because you're walking as a child. You're walking in obedience and you look like your Father. Well, I hope that's encouraging for you guys to kind of see how all this works together. After God has saved us and set us free, it frees us to love him and live a life of obedience to him, which is the most amazing thing. I don't even know how to put it into words. The reality that we get to live in God's kingdom and live the way he's designed us to live and glorify him with our lives. So thank you guys for coming and checking out this video and being a part of this community, for having these conversations with us. I look forward to making another video soon and being with you guys when I do.